Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the No BS Spiritual Book Club's live streaming interview series, where leading new thought teachers, speakers, and authors share the intimate stories behind the 10 best spiritual books that inspired them the most on their spiritual journey. From well-known classics to hidden gems you might never have heard of, the No BS Spiritual Book Club saves you time and money by sharing reliable recommendations from those who've walked the path before you. The No BS Spiritual Book Club, the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to inspire your own journey of self-discovery. Here's your host, founder of the No BS Spiritual Book Club, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello and welcome. Maureen Sharphouse grew up in Dunfermline, Scotland, with big dreams and goals. And after gaining a Master's of Arts degree from Glasgow University, she set her sights on a very bright and rewarding future. But when she was 30, her life and dreams got hacked after contracting a serious infection on holiday in Mexico. Despite medical interventions, her body struggled to recover fully, and progressive neurological symptoms, excruciating muscle spasms, and severe nerve and bone pain became a constant companion. Few of us know what it's like to live with intractable pain and ongoing health challenges, with a diagnosis that creates multiple complex and incurable degenerative conditions, with pain levels so high they're collectively dubbed the suicide disease. But Maureen Sharphouse does, and it took her to the limits of her strength and courage. And then in 2002, she experienced a life-defining moment when she contemplated the horror of the pain and suffering that lay ahead of her. Ill health and chronic pain attacked her life, her body, and her dreams, and it her spirit, and influenced what she believed about herself, and kept her living in the dark. But it couldn't hack her soul unless she allowed it. Today, while Maureen still lives with constant pain and ongoing health challenges, she enjoys a thriving career as a highly trained coach, mentor, speaker, NLP expert, and internationally best-selling author of the inspirational book, Unhackable Soul. Rise up, feel alive, and live well with pain and illness. Maureen joins us now to share the 10 best spiritual books that uplifted, inspired, and empowered her to push beyond a life of chronic pain and help herself and others reignite the light within. Maureen Sharphouse, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Well, it's been quite a journey that you've been through life, and I've been looking forward to talking to these books because everybody who comes on the show has been inspired in one way or another by the books that they choose as their 10 best. But it feels books have given a bit extra than the usual to be able to work through all of that and still be able to help others is quite phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's magical, and I want to thank you for the experience of allowing me to reflect on the books, because as I've done so, I've actually become so aware of the magical experience, because the 10 best I'm going to share with you, I didn't actively seek any of them. They came into my life via other people or via circumstances, and it's quite uncanny when I kind of realized that when I was actually coming to you. So it's just been a real gift, and to see the impact they had on my life at the time, but to see the culmination of them and the process of this crafting internal change in me, and crafting this me, that real strength within me, and taking me from that place of being physical body to really being able to connect within, it's been a magical experience. And, you know, to actually see it lined out in the books that everyone took me a bit deeper, it's been amazing. To them now, you know, you have a look at a book years ago or 30 years ago, and you look at it now and you see it at a different level. And I think you see it you're at. And when we're at this deeper place spiritually, we see a bit deeper below the surface. So yeah, it's been quite a magical experience. A bit overwhelming to find 10. And being honest, Sandie, I had to kind of stop. The first list, I couldn't think. There were so many books. And I also had to I found myself questioning, what does somebody class as a spiritual book? Because, you know, everybody's idea of what's a spiritual book is probably quite different. And so for me, it was very much about which are the ones that have crafted that impact internally for me. What has helped me grow at a soul and spirit level? What has ignited something in me or developed an awareness? And so once I kind of got, you know, comfortable with that and allowed, and I kind of sat in silence and let them come to me, 10 kind of just appeared, you know, they started just formulating. And then I saw the magic, because I saw the magic that I hadn't actively gone seeking them. And I saw the magic of the journey, and they really impact who I am now, what I share, what I teach, how I live my life. So yeah, thank you for the amazing experience of being able to reflect and to share. I'm excited to share now too. So.
Well, you know, you just described, you know, what is a spiritual book? It is a book that uplifts you. It is a book that changes something, shifts a perception, you know, inspires you in some way. That's it. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, a Christian book. It doesn't have to be, you know, anything. In your case, I mean, you know, we even have a few fiction books in there, children's books. You know, it can be something that just has given you something that's helped you on your journey. So let's start with that first children's book, which is The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams Bianco, which was published in 1922.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, you know, I was introduced to this as a child. I always had bedtime stories. So I was always one that was into books. And about the age of 11, I volunteered through the school to go and help out at a local library to sort of gather information. We were doing a project at school on libraries and books. And I was kind of, I'll do it. And of course, when I was at the library, there was a storytelling corner. And one of the librarians was reading a story to a group of young children while their parents were looking around the rest of the library. And there was a young child that was crying. And of course, so this other librarian that I was standing beside, like, why don't you go and sit with them and see if you can sit beside that little girl who was like 5 years old? And I was around 11. So I went and joined them, and it was a Velveteen Rabbit that was getting told. And I just was totally transformed, to the extent I asked my husband for a copy of the book for my 60th birthday, a very special edition with amazing, I don't know if you can see this, amazing illustrations inside. And that was what I asked my husband for my 60th birthday, which was 6 years ago. And it's a very simple story. And I think the beauty is in the simplicity of the language, the simplicity of the story, the simplicity of the message. And it's all about this stuffed rabbit who is given to a little boy in his stocking for Christmas. And at first, you know, the boy is oh, my rabbit, you know, but 2 hours later, when the boy starts getting presents from other people and mechanical toys and more excitement, the little rabbit gets discarded. And then eventually it works its way back into the boy's life. But the rabbit actually asks the toy, you know, he feels inferior to the mechanical ones. And he asks in the nursery, the skin horse, what does it mean to be real? And he says, well, you become real by being loved. And you might be old and shabby by the time that happens to you. But when you are really, really, really loved by your owner, then you become real. And when you are real, you never, ever lose that again. And it's such a magical story. And to me, it just introduced me at that young age of the power of love and that power of being true to who you are and authentic, and that power of connection and being part of and belonging. So for me, it was that real moment, I guess, as a child growing up, at that age, I always kind of had fear of judgment, I think, at that age. And for a good bit of my younger life, never sure if I was good enough, and never sure, if I did something naughty or wrong, would I still be loved? And so I kind of think this story just kind of brought forward to me the power of love and realness, and allowing yourself to be real, not putting on airs and graces to be something you're not. And that's always stayed with me, that allow me to be real and true and authentic and deeply with people. And that is the power. And it is a magical story that takes this rabbit through a journey with the boy, and then he's scarlet fever, and the doctor says the rabbit has to be burned, but then he meets the magic fairy and he comes back as a real rabbit. Because he was really, really loved by the boy, this fairy allows him to come back as a real rabbit in life, and he comes back and visits the boy in his castle. So it's a magical story, really simple language, but at the age of 11, it was hugely impactful, and I was absolutely transfixed. The oldest child in the storytelling corner, and I was absolutely transfixed. So that was my first one that I would say.
That was your first one. Yeah.
And
your list is and your list is presented in the order that those books appeared in your life.
Yeah.
So let's move on to book 2, which is book 2. It's non-fiction, and it is a book that shocked you to the core when you read it. Children of the Sun by Maurice L. West. And that was published in 1957. You were given this book by a teacher at high school. So tell us, what was it about that impacted you the most?
Oh, it was a teacher at high school that found a book. She was cleaning out her cupboard. She said, "Oh, would you like this? It might, you might enjoy this." And honestly, as a teenager, I actually had no idea the poverty existed. It is fiction. I have the same copy of the book. The pages are yellow and brown because this is now 50 years old, this book. And I can't believe I've still got it. But it's a true story about the street urchins in Naples and the poverty they are under, and how they are on the streets at this very young age and craving just love and in survival mode. And it's the story of a priest that goes and lives in amongst them and then creates this home for the urchins in a derelict building, and go freely to get a hot meal and a bed for the night and feel cared for and loved. And I think for me, it was growing up, we'd never had any for luxuries as a child, but I still had, I always had support when I needed it. I always had the love of a parent. I never really wanted for anything. We always had food on the table. We always had those things. And I was completely unaware that poverty of this, intensity actually existed in the world, to the extent that young boys were pimping for brothels. And it really just shocked me and really made me, I think that is exactly the point at where I really wanted to do something good in my life. It was one of those books that awoke something in me, and that's something, it's desire to do something in my life and do good and to help in some way, and also about gratitude. It taught me to be so grateful for what I had, and it opened my eyes to the fact that I've got food in my stomach, I've got a home I'm living in, I've got parents, I've got all these things. And I was just totally unaware that that's not how everyone else lived in the world. I think the problem is, Sandie, that we're aware of our own world, and that is our zone. We live in the world we live in, and unless we open our eyes and look beyond that, we can be completely unaware of what else is going on. And that to me was that expansion of, my goodness, we're part of something much bigger. We're part of a bigger world. Not everybody has it the same.
Yeah.
And my goodness, the real power, that real poverty and the real, that horrible thing about power and again about that craving for love and the need for love and compassion and support. And the relationship this priest developed with these street urchins was incredible. And he never, ever, it wasn't like they had to go in their dorm and stay there. They came and went as they pleased because that was their life. And he lived amongst them. And yeah, it's it really is one of these books that if you read it, it's hard to let it go. And I think that when I found I've still got the copy, kind of, that was the real thing. My goodness, it has been hard for me to let this go. And I don't know how I've still got it because I've moved house so many times over the years. I've cleaned out so many times, and yet this is still here. And I remember the teacher's face. I remember her giving it to me, and I remember that real gut-wrenching pain I felt at the thought of children not having this and having to go to the depths they had to go to just to survive. So it really was that, to me, it's like, I want to do something good in my life. And so I'm very grateful for that book. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to actually reflect on that. I wasn't aware how big an impact it had on me until I looked at it now for this. Yeah. And then I recognized, goodness, that played a massive part in my, and I think it's helped as well, as I went on and developed an illness and being ill, and I've got quite severe health, conditions. I use a wheelchair, and there's a lot, I need help, a lot of pain. It's taught me the power of gratitude, because there's always worse, and yes, I don't have the best health, and yes, I live in pain, and I live in distance, and I'm not independent, and I'm not mobile. I have a warm roof over my head, and I have food in my stomach, and I also have love, family, and I love myself. Yeah. So it really teaches you that, and I think that has been a real core foundation for me, and about awareness of we're part of a much bigger world where it's not all the same for everybody, and we need to do what we can do to help others. So yeah, so that was number two.
I'm really glad that really glad that you gave that to us, because I didn't know about this book, but it sounds to me like the sort of book that our children today would really benefit from reading.
Absolutely.
Many are so privileged; they really need to understand.
Definitely.
That there are people around the world that aren't.
I think it should be on like a reading list at school. I think it should be one of the one of the books that your recommended reading list. It was so impactful for me. It was just because the teacher was cleaning out it. It wasn't like anyone else got the copy. And I think that's what magical as well when I'm reflecting. Is I didn't ask or seek for these, and yet the books have come to me that have really made an impact on how I feel at a deep inner level. So yeah, the whole experience of these looking through the books has been magical. It's been magical to see how they've fallen into place for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So book number 3 is one that appears quite frequently on people's lists, a much loved book and very impactful for so many people, which is Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach, published in 1970.
Yeah.
So what did you take from this one?
Look who's still got her copy. Now, I was at university, and I was in a university bookstore, in Glasgow. I went to university in Glasgow, and I was looking for course books. And I did a master's in music and drama, so I wasn't even looking for anything in relation to this. I was looking for course books. And somehow this book jumped out at me. And I never really understood at the time why I buy it, but I just knew I needed to buy it. It was just like, oh, I have to have that one. It was nothing to do with my coursework. And for me, again, this book is this, it really brought home to me, I think, about that limitations that we think we have are perhaps not what we have at all. And that freedom, that, you know, it gave me this feeling of freedom to soar and freedom to fly and freedom to be who I wanted to be. And I wasn't really one to fit in with a crowd. You know, I was one of these people as I grew up. I didn't feel comfortable sometimes going with the norm and getting up to things that other people were and doing things. And I think I was kind of seen sometimes as this bit of loner, or this bit of, you know, I was into different things than some of my friends were. And I think this one gave me permission to be who I am. You know, it was like, it's okay not to try and fit in with the crowd. It's okay to want something really good to do with your life. It's okay to want more, to be more, to try and be more and do more with your life. And again, that sense of freedom I really craved. You know, I just had this real craving as I was growing up to have this sense of freedom to fly and freedom to be me. And that, and again, so I think it's about, and do you know, from then on, I've revisited it a few times, this book. And again, it's really helped me to come to terms with, I'm not my physical body. And I'm not limited by my physical body. I'm the spirit within me. And that can fly as high as I want to. And so for me, it's a really powerful thing. And, you know, in every journal, I journal every single day, and my journals are full of doodles of soaring birds. Everything I write, I doodle soaring birds. And when I left my first marriage, I'm now second time marriage, and beautiful soulmate husband, amazing man. But when I left my first marriage, for several years leading up to that point, I dreamt every night of flying, literally. You know, I was dreaming, and I was the bird, and I was flying, and I was flying higher and higher. And when I actually left my first marriage, I didn't have the dream anymore. But I still doodle soaring birds to this day. So for me, it's freedom. It's freedom from limitations. It's about acknowledging you're not limited by your physical body, which for me is hugely important. And it's, you know, that has made an enormous difference as to how I can live my life with severe disability, if you want to class it as that. So yeah, so a really beautiful, beautiful book. And I think, again, it's one of these books, Sandie, when you read it, you see something more every time. You get a message at a deeper level every time. And I think that's the magic of books. You know, that's when you first read a book, to me, you're never going to remember every single thing about the book. But what you remember is how it made you feel. That's for me, you know, a book. I remember how a book made me feel at the time, rather than every bit of the content. And I think when, you know, you remember the surface bit, but if you go back and revisit, it takes you that bit deeper and that bit deeper. And yeah, and I think that's, you know, Jonathan of the Seagull is one of those books. I think there's a Jonathan in all of us. And I think, you know, he'll always be part of my life. I doodle birds everywhere. And I still just have this sense of, which really helps, especially on my really bad days, this sense of the body's not who I am. I have this freedom to soar. And, you know, I maybe do it in different ways. Some people run marathons and climb mountains. I do things in a different way. You know, I embrace nature. I love the work I do. And, you know, and I write, and I love to write, and, you know, and I love music. And so we all do it in our different ways. And I think that's the beauty of that book. It's like the limitations that exist in your mind, and yours isn't the bit that limits what you can do. And you don't need to try and fit in and stay fitting in with everybody all the time. It's okay to be different. It's okay to want more. And it's okay to always learn and to always try that bit more of how else can I improve? How else can I grow? Yeah, magical book.
Number 4 is Fluke by James Herbert, published in 1970. And you say that your father gave you a copy of this book while you were in your 20s. What was it about this book?
I got it. My father gave it, and my father died when he was 59 in 1991. And so this book, I was, again, to find that I still have this very copy, and the pages, I don't know if you can see, but they're actually brown. But it's the same copy my father gave me. And it is a story. However, it's a story about a stray dog, and it's written from the dog's perspective, who comes back, who realizes as a dog that he was a man in his past life. And so he is now the dog, and he's remembering his life when he was on the earth as a man, and he goes to seek on a journey his family to find out how his wife and his daughter is, and to find out, about his death. And the story takes you through. I mean, you start believing it's a dog that is speaking to you all the time. And it takes you on his travels through, this journey through various, meeting different people, staying with different people, having to try and get home to find his wife and daughter, which he finally does. However, they don't realize it's him, obviously. I think the beautiful thing about this is it introduced me to the idea of coming back, of reincarnation, of perhaps there's more when our life here in physical form is ended. It introduced me to that whole concept. And it made me look at my family dog in a different light. And it has ever since. Now, animals play a massive part in my life. More so probably because I'm at home nearly all of the time, and I have a sport dog. And so they play a huge part in my life. But I cannot see an animal without seeing, I just see a soul. I see us all as souls in different physical bodies. And that was the book that introduced me to that. The idea that we're all souls in physical bodies, that perhaps there isn't just this one life for us, there is more. And it also really is it introduces you to the idea of the interaction between humans and animals, between different animals, and also how we're in our world and sometimes we're unaware of the rest. There's a beautiful bit in the book when Fluke the dog he's on his journey trying to find his home and his town, to find his wife and see how they're all doing. And he goes through a wood and he comes across this wood, and there's a pond and there's a frog. And he speaks to the frog, and the frog's going, well, where are you going? What are you doing? He says, oh, I'm just passing through. I'm on my way to... And the frog tells him, don't be so silly. There isn't anything beyond the woods. You're going to be so disappointed. This is it. So it really kind of opens your eyes to, wow, we all have our own perception of the world we live in. And we only know what we know. And we don't know what we don't know. And there's so much out there, So it's just a really beautiful story about, a dog that remembers his life before as a man and his journey. And it really introduces you to that. And I always remember my father, when he gave it to me, and before he died, he actually said to me when he gave it to me, read this. And he actually says, I believe that we all come back. So never ever, and this was before he was ill and before he died. And he actually was saying to me, well, we all come back. And he says, but we might come back as a dog or a cat sometime, you never know. I'm laughing. And I remember laughing with him, saying, right, okay. And he said, read the book. And of course, now it's like my father's been dead 30 odd years, but I sense him around me constantly. And I must admit, sometimes I look at my animals and think, oh my goodness. But yeah, a lot of people refer to me as an animal whisperer because I just see something in animals, and I see them at a level beyond their physical body. I connect at a soul level, and that was the book that did that to me. That's the book that did that, to actually allow me to look at animals in terms of their souls within a different physical body, but actually we're all the same. And it's a beautiful book, a beautiful book, and it's hard to put down. It's a hard to put down one, that one.
So book is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, a fable about fulfilling your dreams and reaching your destiny by Robin Sharma, published in 1996.
Yeah. This book, again, I've got a copy of all of these books still. This book, it was on a recommended reading list for me. I trained as a life coach and a mentor about 12, 15 years ago. And that was on the recommended reading list of like my very first training program that I was going to be doing. And there was recommended books to read before I went and did this course in training. And that was one of them. And it's a story, it's a fictional story, and it's a story of a high-powered solicitor, a lawyer, who has the Ferrari and the big car and the holidays and the jets, and, you know, creates quite a performance in the courtroom. He's well known for what he does. And then he has this massive heart attack, which really makes him stop and question life. Because whilst he had all the material things, he felt unfulfilled. And he has a heart attack. It's his wake-up call. He decides to go to India and to actually seek what he feels he's been missing, to see what he can find out and learn. So he does. He goes to India. He meets up with these sages and learns what he can from them. But they only share with him. They say, well, we'll only share it with you if you promise to go back to people and share what you learn. So it is the story of his journey in India and learning from sages, you know, exactly the different. And again, it's beautiful. And he comes back and he relays the story to a young lawyer who reminds him of himself when he was younger, who's just push material, and he shares it all. And I read it in one sitting because I couldn't put the book down. And I just sat and I just kept reading it because it was like, oh, and what happened then? And what happened then? And what's it? And he shares with these 7 timeless wisdoms. And it is about finding your purpose and being in the now and taking ownership and responsibility. And, you know, and it's all these things which really are part of a spiritual journey. It's from the head and the ego and the materialistic world that he lived in to this inner transformation of finding the peace and the contentment and the joy and the stillness. And so it's very much takes you from that and allows you to really see that actually the happiness isn't something that comes from material things or a high-powered job or a level of income. It's about how you feel on the inside. And for me, it was a really good point in my life because I'd lost my job through ill health and I train and share what I was doing and be a life coach. And that was it was a really nice introduction to me to, I kind of guess it confirmed I was on the right path, you know, because at one point in my life I was quite a materialistic lady and quite a high achiever, and it really allowed me to suddenly go, actually, and you know, when I come to my work from a place of service, I always have done. I'm a rubbish saleswoman when it comes to my business and my work, because that's not the way I work. I want to come from a place of service to people. So yeah, I think that's the book that really brought that home to me, that it's, you know, it's about how you feel on the inside and it's about how you live life, and it's not about push and achieve and make happen and material stuff all the time. That's not what's going to bring you the joy and contentment and the peace. So it's a beautiful story,
You know,
and really well written.
Yeah, and that's the theme that's run through all of your books so far, and continues to do so. That really is about the fundamentals, you know, the negotiables, the authenticity, the love, the being of service.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
book number 6.
Yeah. Stillness Speaks.
Book number 6 is Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle, published in 2003.
And again, came to me at this amazing point in my life when I was at the process of setting up my coaching business. And I was very much in the over busyness of make it happen, do X, Y, Z. You know, and you get solved in trying to make things happen and doing things and caught up in your thoughts of how to make it happen, how to make it successful business, how to do things. And this book came into my life. Again, one of these books that just kind of appeared in a book when I was a shelf when I was looking for something else. You know, I'm in the shop looking for something else and this appears. And it's just the most beautiful thing, because it's just like a couple 200 stand alone, little short little phrases, little short little sentences. And it is about just allowing that stillness and silence and space. It's become a non-negotiable practice of mine. You know, it kind of took me off this. I was almost getting on the treadmill of trying to make my business get off the ground and build momentum. I getting carried away with it to suddenly, whoa, and then wondering why it was quite hard to find the answers. And actually, this introduced me to create the space, create the stillness, allow it to be. And I don't need to have all the answers, and I don't need to know it all, and I don't need to be overthinking. And when I create that stillness, and every morning I have 20 minutes of what I call my relax, breathe, be time. And I sit quietly and focus breathing. And I have a whole thing, you know, there's quite a few things I do in my morning practice, but this is one of them. And the clarity that comes from my moments of silence and stillness is incredible, because I can, you know, I can get a bit overwhelmed at times with things, and especially on the real bad pain days. And I can feel quite overwhelmed. And if I just go quiet and allow the space and the stillness and allow myself just to be in the moment, then it's often the answers will come. And it's like you get the clarity of thought. But it's not only that, it's just, it allows me to feel vibrantly alive and vibrantly at peace. And that is an incredible feeling. And I think the book took me from head and thinking, and probably a bit of ego in there as well at the beginning, setting my business up. And it took me from that place to this in here. And I wasn't just, you know, and it takes you from being alive in your head to being at a different level. And that is just a gift. And it's a real gift. And it's something that, you know, is non-negotiable to me. You know, I need it, I want it, I crave it, but it's my time for connecting with my higher self. It's my time that I have my conversations with a higher power, God, or the universe, whatever you want to class that. It's my time for just allowing myself to be in the space and just to allow to be what is being without, you know, free of judgment. And that, again, is a massive thing for me, living with a disability, neurological illness. You know, being able to be free of judgment and to stop the thought process of whether something's good or bad, or, you know, and just allowing yourself to be, well, free of judgment. It is as it is. This is where I am. I'm in this space. I'm in this, and connecting with that. It's an incredibly deep, uplifting and nourishing practice, you know, to actually create that stillness. And I always think, you know, it's not only the stillness that speaks, it's in that stillness and space that I more acutely hear.
Yes.
And I also, in that space, you know, I ask, you know, I speak to my body, my mind, my spirit, my soul in those spaces of that quiet. And instead of going, what do I need to do to help me, you know, function, I will say to my body, you know, what do you need from me? What do you need from me so that I can help you help me function best? I'll say it to my mind, what do you need from me today to help me get the clarity I need? I'll say it to my spirit and to my soul. And so I think silence, stillness speaks, and creating space, getting away from all the thoughts, allowing that presence of being. And you know, this is so easy to read, Sandie, because it's, you know, it's such just little short bits, and you can read one a day if you want. You can dive back in and out. You can, and yeah, and it just really opens your whole up to, you know, just opened it up, and it says the now is inseparable from who you are at the deepest level. And you know, exactly, the now is inseparable from who you are at the deepest level. And yeah, magical, another magical one.
Good. So number 7, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant, which was published in 2012.
Yeah. Again, got a copy of it. Short book, simple message. And I was actually sent this book by a client of mine who said to me that she spotted it in a bookstore and it just made her think of me. And so she sent me a copy. And we'd been doing some work on, learning to love yourself and accept yourself as you are. So this was this, but it's the story. I mean, Kamal, who wrote it, he was in the army and he trekked the highest peaks of the Himalayas and he did 550-mile walk across Spain. And, he was one of these men that was constant challenges and achievement and challenges. And that's what he was known for. And then he got quite ill. And a business that he started had ended up not doing very well financially. He lost somebody that was very dear to him, and he just went into a bit of a rock bottom place. And this book, he was asked the year after that, he was asked to go and speak at a conference, and he didn't know what to speak on. He had 2 minutes to stand up and speak, and he decided, in the moment, that he would speak on, the secret of life and what he had discovered after hitting rock bottom the year before. And it's about the power of loving yourself. And loving yourself so intensely, as if you would be hanging, just with the same intensity as you would be hanging from a cliff with your fingertips. That's the intensity you need to love yourself. And it's this whole thing about how he brought himself out from this not so great place after being this high achiever and one of the strong men and, trekking the Himalayas and doing all these things. And it was this power of love. And it was his friends after the talk who said, you have to put it in a book. You have to put it in a book. And so it's very short, but it is very much about, how he started having to say to himself, I love myself. I love myself. And doing various, all around that love. And it's not an ego love. It's about respecting and valuing yourself. And it's about loving yourself so that you do what lights you up and you do what's true to you and you do what's done to you. And I say that a client sent it to me, but when I read it, me about this one, it was the same principle that I'd taken after my first marriage dissolved, because I ended up recognizing that, if I don't, I spent all my time loving everyone else and doing everything else first and putting my kids first and doing everything first. And it's very easy to do that, Sandie. I think we're very good as humans, perhaps at loving other people and loving there, but we neglect ourselves. And I ended up, finding myself, starting out again in life at the age of 50 and really having to stop and look at myself. And I didn't even know who I was anymore, let alone like or love me. I just had lost myself. And so this was really what I'd done. I was looking, I still to this day look in the mirror every morning and high five myself and go, love you, girl. I mean, that's just, you need to do these things, and allow yourself. So I think the beauty of this is about, it's the power of loving yourself at a deep level. And again, this question it brings up, which was so appropriate and so similar to what I'd already done, was, asking yourself, if I love myself truly and deeply, would I allow myself to experience this? If I allowed myself truly and deeply, what would I do? And those questions are so powerful. And there's such a powerful thing to ask yourself. It's one of these things that it's always a reminder to me, that if I'm ever sitting in a bit of a quandary or I'm ever a bit uncomfortable about something, if you love yourself truly and deeply, would you allow yourself, to go through this and experience this? So I think, it's a really powerful one. Love yourself like your life depends on it. And it's a powerful message to everyone. And it's a very spiritual journey it's not love of the ego. It's not that. And it's not craving external love from people. It's about that inner love for yourself and that valuing yourself and doing the things that feel true to you and allowing that vulnerability to be who you truly are, be seen as well with people. Beautiful book. And came into my life at a point when actually it was a really, really nice, it made me sense what I'd done, because I don't think I'd realized that I'd taken this real journey of not feeling enough and probably hating myself for breaking up a family and doing all things, to actually loving myself and valuing myself and respecting myself. And the beauty of when you do that is you find life starts loving you back. Because the more I started to love myself, the more that love breathed life back into me. And it also allowed me to meet my gorgeous soulmate husband. And I think, it's when you love yourself, that light in your eyes shows. And when that light in your eyes shows, then you're going to attract those people to you because, so I think, rather than loving someone else first, you need to love yourself first. And then those loving connections will happen for you in the right way. So beautiful, beautiful book.
Another book that should be adolescent's reading list, for sure. Yeah. So book number 8, we need to just speed it up a little bit because I do want to talk about your book before I'm out of time. So number 8, Tears to Triumph by Marianne Williamson, which was published in 2016.
Yeah. Again, this one came to me. I was looking for something on Amazon, a present for my daughter. This one jumped into my basket and I have no idea how. And it's very much, every time you read, I'm only at a very surface level with this book. And I've read it, go back in and out a few times, take it to another level. But it is very much about, it's really helped me go from this place of, and just confirm to me, you don't need to be looking at what is this pain about? What has this happened to me for? It's what can I learn from this? What is the blessing in this? And it's about seeing that, you can go from the tears to the triumph, from the head to the heart, from that head place and body place to the soul place, through really accepting that challenging things happen. That's not what defines things. It's how you deal with it. It's who you are inside. And it's quite a religious book. And, I'm not, the way my spiritual beliefs are not solely based on Christianity at all. I'm quite broad. And I still am at the surface of this book, probably the way I read it, but it's hugely impactful because it's certainly from my point of view, from somebody who had come to rock bottom in her life and been told that she's got an incurable illness and not the best prognosis. And I've gone from this place of darkness to feeling truly vibrantly alive and light, and from this tears to the triumph, and working from this place of physical body to soul and spirit. It really hits home. But I think there's an awful lot more to this book than I've touched the surface of at the moment. I think it's one that when I first read it, it's a bit kind of, oh, there's so much in here. I'm not sure how to take this. But it's definitely impacted on my life. Definitely impacted on my life.
Okay, number 9 is Streams in the Desert by L.B. Cowman, first published in 1925 and updated in 1999.
Yeah. And again, this is part of my non-negotiable practice every morning. I read this every morning as part of my journaling, my reading, my meditation time. Again, this didn't come to me. This came to me in the post. I actually don't know who sent me this. I was out in the States about 4 years ago for treatment and hoping to get remission, hoping to get some significant improvement because there's more treatments in the States available than in Scotland where I live. And I didn't get it. I spent 3-4 months out in the States and came home without remission, without improvement. I was only home about 3 weeks and my husband got a cancer diagnosis. And this book arrived in the post with no card, no message. I do not know who sent it to me, but all I know is it was sent to me with love and compassion. And that kind of oozed out of it. It was just this overwhelming hug I felt as I opened it, and I still don't know who sent it to me. And it came at that point in my life when really these readings, I think whilst, I'm not strictly tethered in Christianity, and this is probably seen as a Christian book, the readings are so impactful. And it really is, like the stream in the desert. It's like that refreshing read that I have every day that helps me through the challenging and difficult times. And it's okay, you know, and it really is about that building of faith and trust. And it's how I live my life. I live my life with faith and trust, one next best step at a time. I believe I can handle whatever life brings me, and I'm supported by a bigger presence. And this really keeps that as a real strong core for me. And it's something, you know, it's 365 days. So there's a, you know, one for every day of the year. And I'm in kind of year 4 now, because I just go back. When I finish it, I just go back and read. And yeah, it's a real uplifting. And I don't think, you know, in the truth, you know, whilst it is a devotional, I think whatever your beliefs may be at a spiritual level, you will get something from what's shared. And it is about really makes you feel, you know, and very aware of being supported by a bigger presence, and we're part of something bigger. And that life can be tough, and that's okay. It's so, you know, life, we wouldn't learn from a life of bliss all the time. And I think, you know, that's the bit, you know, and I think because it also really highlights that because we do experience the dark and we do experience the challenges, it makes our moments of light more vibrant. You know, I have accessed something so deeply precious through my illness and through all the challenges that probably many people don't get to access, because it's that light is more vibrant to me. So while I've got the real, you know, I've got the real extremes, you know, of the real dark and then the light. So, and I think this book, The Streams in the Desert, is just that little refreshing lift every day, that no matter how difficult that morning may be, you know, that gives me the lift. And, you know, I also have a little bird on my desk, which just reminds me that no matter how dark the night, the birds always sing in the morning. And if they can do it, so can I. And then I have the robin on my desk, which is the one about gratitude at night. The robins sing at night, saying, you know, thank you for the day and for the food. So that's my gratitude reminder. So yeah, The Streams in the Desert is a non-negotiable part of my morning, and very uplifting, and very at a spiritual level, really enhance that core, you know. So yeah.
So finally, we come to the book that you say has had the biggest impact on your spiritual growth to date, and that is your own book, Unhackable Soul,
Yeah.
about feel alive and live well with pain and illness. So how has this book had the biggest impact on your life?
Honestly, Sandie, this is the culmination of 7 years of writing and stopping. I started writing the book 7 years ago when I felt really called to share a message and called to share. And I stopped and I started and I stopped and I started. And at times I felt I was trying to fit a square into a round hole. And so many times on that journey, I just kind of thought, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel like it's what I'm here to share. And it was only, and I think, you know, it was only when I really stopped and allowed myself to just write what wanted to be written, rather than think it out and think what, you know, people want to hear. When I just gave up the need for perfectionism, which I was, you know, it was like, oh, I have to keep perfecting and editing. Gave up the need for perfectionism, gave up my fear of what people might think or say. So fear judgment of others, because, you know, what I share is maybe going to rattle some people's cages. I don't know. And I allowed myself just to go, do you know what is it I'm here to share? And I allowed that, just that connection. And I, you know, allowed myself that space, and allowed myself the freedom to write the words on the page that wanted to be written through me. And then it just flowed. And it really shares you know, it's split over 30 days, and it's a self-help book, you know, for people living with pain and illness. And it amazingly went to #1 in personal transformation and spirituality on Amazon, which was incredible. And it is a self-help book. It's got rise assignments every day. It's got a whole host of things in that. But basically, it's the principles of how I live my life. It's the same principles how I turned my life around from a place of darkness to where I am now, feeling vibrantly alive despite the chronic illness and pain. And it's the principles that are deeply rooted in me. And many of those principles, as I've been looking back on the books, have been birthed in the books I've read over the years. You can see now, you kind of see this culmination of it all and how I live my life and what I share and what I know about living with pain and illness. And there's a lot of practical and spiritual tips and techniques and tools and practices and strategies shared. But it's on me, it's been this huge spiritual journey because I became very aware that it was a connection and I was here to share this message. And it became very clear, this is what I'm here to share. This is my purpose on earth. Makes sense and purpose to everything I've gone through for the last 35 years. It's actually part of, and now it's like being the lighthouse and the leader to others who are maybe a bit further behind me on the journey. It's what fuels me, and it's what fuels me at a deep soul level. And to be able to share that and to be able to then give myself the freedom without the fear of judgment and without the perfectionism was a real spiritual experience for me. And even, it's my own book and I still open it up and have a look at it and I think, did I write that? Some of it I feel has kind of come through. And yeah, so no, it's been an amazing, magical experience to look back on all of these.
I love the title, Unhackable Soul, because that sums it up, doesn't it? It doesn't matter what else gets in life. Our souls are sovereign and completely unhackable. Yeah. So that's your
and
10
I think
best
that's
list.
the title comes from.
Yeah, I think we've got a little bit of delay here, so sorry if I'm talking over you. But what are you reading now?
What am I reading now? Oh my goodness. I dive in and out kind of constantly. I've been reading True Grit and Grace, which is Amberly Lago. I've been reading her book. I read Streams in the Desert, obviously, all the time. I read The Artist's Way. That's one of my, I love the work of Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way. So I read that. And I kind of, I've got a whole host of different things, being honest, that I dive in and out of. A mixture of, I like things that, I like people's journeys. I like to hear about other people's growth and people's journeys as well, so there's something really nice in that. I've got a book called Rise that I'm reading, which is again a woman's journey through something and what she's learned. And it's, I've just got so many bits on the go just now. And I think that's when you're saying, what am I reading? I'm probably doing the dipping at the moment, if that makes sense. When you read and you dip and then you kind of go back and you dip. And sometimes I will just lift a book off my bookshelf and go to certain pages. It's like I don't sometimes feel the need to always sit and read a book from start to finish now. Sometimes I'm going back and revisiting. And I think even more so since being asked to do this for you, I've actually, this last 2-3 weeks, I've been revisiting. Because when I've realized the impact of these books on me, it's like, oh, I go back and revisit, and even like the books like, the Fiona Harold Be Your Own Life Coach and things, I've gone back and revisited bits of it. And again, some of the, The Dark is the New Light. And there's a few books, that I kind of just been going back and revisiting. So no, it's, and again, my head's now in writing my next book as well. So that's really nice.
I know on your it says that you're on a mission to get the light within people burning brightly. You really help people reignite. One of the things that was really nice on your website is your little piece on inspiring facts and role models, where you give, a brief description of certain people like Lady Gaga, Frida Kahlo, Christopher Reeve, Stephen Hawking, Andrea Bocelli, and others who have had disabilities and challenged life, and that they have moved through those challenges to be very successful in what they do. They haven't allowed them, to stop trajectory of success. And it's really good to see something like that on a website where people can just, pick any one of them and feel inspired by what they read.
Yeah. And I think, the message I really want to share with people is, being happy, being alive, feeling alive and being happy and being successful doesn't rely, it's not exclusive to those that are physically fully fit and healthy. It's not.
Yeah.
And whether, if you have a chronic health condition or an illness or a disability, all this, don't make that the excuse not to go after these things, because actually happiness is the inside and success is defined in our own terms. And just like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, we don't need to see the limits of our bodies as to what we can do. And I am very much so aware that I'm not my physical body. I'm not my self-limiting mind. I'm soul within. And if I stay connected to that and be true to that, then I can achieve whatever I'm called to do, and I will handle whatever. And I think, all the people on my website that I've shared, and, to me, it's like, they're just examples. I really want to inspire people to not be held back, that the limitations are in, their thoughts. It's not so much what you go through in life, and it's not what's happened to you. It's how you're responding to it. And the dangerous thing is the thoughts you have around it. It's like the thoughts of, when I was first told, I had a neurological illness and the prognosis wasn't good, it's like, in my head, all I could see was, life in a wheelchair and carers and all the rest of it. And that was what was there. And those thoughts are what restricts you. Whereas actually, if you can get rid of judgment and go, well, actually, it is for me. This is where I am. However, how I deal with this now and how I handle this. And actually, if I do more of the things that spark joy in me and more of the things that make me feel alive, then I'm going to feel more alive. And that peace and that happiness and contentment is available for all, absolutely all of us. And it's about that working, that way to access that, and having the tools and the practices and the strategies and the tools. And that's why I give a lot of free resources away on my website on the Get Inspired page. There's a lot of downloadable resources for free to help people connect within. And it's really, I do come from that place of service with people. So, please, anyone can reach out to me, and they'll always get a response from me. And if I can help, I will. So.
Well, Maureen Sharphouse, thank you so much for adding Best Bliss to the No BS Spirit Book Club library of recommendations. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for it's been a gift. It's been a magical experience reflecting on them. And it's really highlighted to me the magical, mysterious educational process that life is. So thank you, Sandie. It's really been a beautiful, beautiful experience, and much gratitude for you. Much gratitude.
Well, you can learn more about Maureen Sharphouse's book, Unhackable, and the 30-day course within. And as she mentioned, you'll find lots of inspiration, meditations, empowering strategies, free audios and downloads at her website, MaureenSharphouse.com. Before we close, if you've enjoyed this particular episode, then why not head over to the website at the No BS Spiritual Book Club.com, browse through the email lists from recommendations from some of the spiritual authors and speakers that you enjoy. And while you're there, check out the page on I can help you if you want to write your own, have it published. That's it for this week. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. I'll be back at the same time next week with another 10 best interview for the No BS Spiritual Book Club. Till then, it's goodbye me.